Hi everybody, welcome to the CSS3 course. In this video, I'm going to talk about the ways to set up the margins for the elements. Before I introduce the margins, I just want to show you the web page on the right hand side and the HTML file corresponding to this web page. So for the HTML file, I just set up a heading called margin, and I include a number of paragraphs. I have 4 paragraphs. And the most important thing is that I include some horizontal lines surrounding each of the paragraphs. So for example, this first paragraph will be enclosed by the 2 lines here and there. And the second paragraph is enclosed by this horizontal rule and the horizontal rule below the second paragraph. Same for the third paragraph and the fourth paragraph. So let me open the style.css file first. Okay, let us discuss the meaning of a margin. A margin is simply the space around the element, which is measured beyond the borders. So it is a bit abstract at this stage. In order to help you understand the meaning of the margin, I would like to visualize the margin effect better by setting up some styles for the first paragraph right here. Okay, now the first paragraph has a background color, which is light green. Okay, I also include a border surrounding the paragraph element. So you can see that the border style is rich, the border color is gray, and the border width is 8 pixels. After that, I would also like to set up the width of the paragraph element. Now you can see that the width has been limited to only 150 pixels for the first paragraph. So the meaning of the width attribute is that I simply constrain the size of the paragraph content to be having only 150 pixels. So when I enlarge the window, the width of the element is still 150 pixels. It is not changed by the viewport size, okay? In order to help me visualize the effect of the margin even better, I want to decrease the font size of the first paragraph to 0.5 em, okay. Now I can add the margin. I'm able to do the margin one by one. Now you can see that the top border is separated far away from the upper horizontal rule by the value of 30 pixels. So you can see that the margin is indicated by this space. So when we go back to the definition of the margin, we can see that the margin is simply the space around the element, which is measured beyond the borders. So the margin is some measurement just outside the borders. So we can see the meaning of the margin a bit easier after a number of the visualization effects that I mentioned. Now I can continue the margin setup. Okay, when I set up the margin to be 60 pixels on the right, you can see that the margin is simply created. So when I simply click on the paragraph on the HTML file, I'm able to see the space which is outside the border. So this length is simply 60 pixels. Okay, when I set up the bottom margin as 80 pixels, I can simply figure out the separation between the bottom border and the bottom horizontal rule. So the distance between these two lines is simply 80 pixels. Now when I set up the left margin as 90 pixels, you can see the separation between the very left-hand side of the web browser and the left border of the paragraph element. So you can see that the space between these two lines is simply 90 pixels. So again, when we talk about the margins are simply the space around the element which is measured beyond the borders. So the space outside the borders are regarded as the margin. Okay. In addition to using 4 separate attribute value pairs, I can have some shorthand notations for the margin setup. So I'm going to do so on the remaining 3 paragraphs. In order to visualize the effects a bit better, I need to set some styles for the second paragraph first. Now, my second paragraph has the text being justified, and I also set up the border for the paragraph content. Okay. Now I can simply set up the margin of the paragraph element to have only one value, which is 80 pixels. So when I have only one value for the margin attribute, I will simply set the margin of the 4 sides to be equal to 80 pixels. So this is 80 pixels, this is 80 pixels, this is also 80 pixels, and of course this is also 80 pixels. And we have to understand that the margin is simply relative to the fill port because the width of the element content is not set, as opposed to the situation for the first paragraph in which I set up the width of the element content. So let me simply annotate this important idea. Okay, in order to visualize the fill port effect, I just need to enlarge the browser. Okay, when I do the enlargement, I'm able to see that the margins for all the 4 sides would be equal to the same amount, as can be seen by the visual effect on the enlarged browser. Okay, so each margin is having the same length. Okay. Now let me go to the third paragraph. I can also use 2 values as the content for the attribute value pair. Of course, before I illustrate this idea, I need to decorate my paragraph a bit slightly. Now the third paragraph is a bit decorated, which has simply the same arrangement for the second paragraph. Okay, for the third paragraph right here, you can see that the top and bottom margins are simply 80 pixels, while the left and right margins are only 40 pixels. So you can see that I can only use 2 values to represent the borders of the 4 directions. Okay. Also, I'm able to use 3 values for the margin attribute. So let me do so on the 4th paragraph right here. Of course, I also need to decorate my paragraph in order to visualize the effect a bit easier. Okay, for the final paragraph right here, the top margin is 90 pixels, the left and right margins are 20 pixels respectively, and the bottom margin is only 50 pixels. So you can see that I can only use 3 values to represent the 4 margins on the particular element. Of course, when I simply enlarge the browser window, I'm able to see that the margins will be the same as the situation when the browser has a smaller area. So the margins will be the same as the situation when the window is smaller. Okay, so regardless of the viewport size, the margins will still be the same as the values on the CSS file. So again, we can say that the viewport size would simply affect the appearance of the particular elements. The principle is that the margins are simply following the values mentioned on the CSS file. So even though the width of the elements is a bit different from the previous situation of a smaller browser window, the margins will still be the same as those mentioned on the CSS file. So this video helps you understand the idea of setting up the margins one by one, and you can also have some ways to set up the margins by using 1 value, 2 values, or 3 values. This is the end of the video. If you have any questions about my video, please leave your questions on the comment section below the video. If you like this video, please give me a like and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.